the Subspace Emissary, everyone's favorite Super Smash Bros. Story mode. It brings all the best characters in gaming together for one melee-driven narrative that still holds up today. Out of Brawl's 35-character roster, almost every single one makes an appearance over the course of the story, but their roles vary tremendously. Some characters play a pivotal part in progression, while others are basically just cameos. Today, we're going to look at every character's role in Subspace Emissary and rank them from worthless to elite. Mario! Nintendo's Golden Boy is there for a lot of the story, but doesn't really do anything special. At the beginning, after fighting Kirby, he gets sent by a cannonball, and Kirby has to fight Piranha all by himself. But shortly after, Pit saves him, and the two work together for basically the whole story. He meets up with other characters at every turn and is a capable guy, but he makes an ass of himself a couple times and doesn't do much to stand out. Solid mid-tier. Luigi! Yeah, he's pretty pathetic. He's first seen facing off against a helpless little Waddle Dee, where he's braced for impact and absolutely terrified. Then DDD sneaks up on him and gives him something to actually worry about. He turns him into a statue in the most humiliating pose possible, and even after he comes back to life, it's Ness and DDD that actually move the story along. This is a pretty easy worthless. She's caught in a cage alongside Zelda as soon as Piranha shows up, and after Kirby comes to the rescue, either her or Zelda is kidnapped by Wario, and the other escapes on a warp star as a giant explosion ensues. But shortly after that, the one that got away is captured by Bowser when Kirby leaves their side for 2 seconds and they just don't feel like running. That princess gets imprisoned on the Halberd, and the one that was initially kidnapped by Wario is then abducted by Deity, who tries to keep him under the radar, but when Bowser invades his base, he finds and steals only the princess statue. When they're eventually freed, Peach takes a nonchalant stroll on top of the airship while guns are blazing, and it makes her look like way too much of a badass. And when things get bad, Zelda, now in Sheik form, takes Fox out of his ship and makes peace with him over a cup of tea. From there, they're both selectable for the whole Great Maze level, but so is every other character, so that shouldn't necessarily raise her ranking. I think both princesses are sitting next to Luigi down in worthless. Bowser! Taboo is the main antagonist in this story, and Bowser is just one of the second ago. Bowser ends up kidnapping Peach and Zelda, both directly and by breaking and entering. He snags a couple other characters throughout, but is most notably seen again in the big spaceship battle scene, where he stands next to Ganondorf, and together they quickly lose. So they hop through a portal to confront the heroes, and when Bowser goes to take center stage, Ganondorf backstabs his ally and turns Bowser into a statue, because the entire time he was secretly planning on taking over the newly assembled Subspace Army. So Bowser got played by both Taboo and Ganon, but when he's given a second chance by King Dedede, he doesn't want to work with him and gets his ass beat. But his third chance he actually capitalizes on, joining up with the heroes to help take down Taboo. He's definitely a capable guy, but being betrayed by his partner hurts his ranking a good bit, though he does get a little revenge. I'll put him in pretty important, because he really does drive the story forward, and gives the hero someone to chase around for a lot of it. Donkey Kong! We first see DK getting robbed of his banana stash once again, so he decides to crush Badniks into paste, and he very quickly gets him back. But then Bowser shows up with his Dark Cannon and is about to Medusa Diddy's ass, so he smacks him out of the way and takes the hit himself. That makes him not playable for a lot of the story, but it's justified, and once he's back, he's playing a pretty typical role again. I'm gonna put him in capable. Kong. He's playable on a lot more levels than Donkey Kong, but is portrayed as pretty needy throughout the story. Obviously, DK has to save him, but then Rayquaza shows up and basically has him dead, until Star Fox shows up and saves him. And after that, he keeps dragging characters along with him because he's scared of what'll happen to him if he's by himself. Now, he does rescue Donkey Kong, that's definitely worth something, but personality-wise, he feels a lot like Luigi, so I'm gonna lower him to kinda weak. Yoshi's in this mode, and he's playable in quite a few levels, but I just can't remember a thing that he himself did to contribute to the story. He's capable, but not all that prominent. Wario! He's probably the weakest of the bad guys. He steals one of the princesses and Ness, but he gets his trophy collection stolen by King Dedede. And when he confronts Lucas and Pokemon Trainer, he gets beat up pretty bad, and gets rock solid, which is how he stays until the end of the game. Yeah, tough on the outside, but honestly, kinda weak. Link is playable at every level that Yoshi is. That's quite a bit, and like Yoshi, he doesn't really stand out or do anything special. But he does have the Master Sword from the start, and at least when the group encounters somebody, he draws his sword or gets an arrow ready. I'll toss him in capable. Ganondorf. Like I said, he backstabs Bowser toward the end of the game because he wants to take control of the Subspace Army as his own. He's portrayed as the most menacing and powerful villain for most of the story, until it's revealed who was really behind Master Hand, and he takes Ganon out like it's nothing. Since he can do that to any character though, it doesn't hurt Ganondorf's ranking. He's the main figurehead for the villains, and since he's smart enough to help defeat the greater evil in the end, I'm still gonna put him in a weak tier. Link is not in this mode. We first see Samus in her Zero Suit form, where she's investigating some mysterious base by herself, and discovers Pikachu being detained and used as a power source. So she frees him, and they team up for some levels until she finds her typical spacesuit and sports it for an encounter with Ridley, where she gets yoinked, smacked into a wall, and beat the out of. Thankfully though, Pikachu is there to use Thunderbolt and save the somehow still alive bounty hunter. They later meet up with Donkey Kong's crew and help out a good bit there, but for the most part, they're kinda doing their own thing, and since they save each other and travel together, they're both going incapable. Pitt's one of the first characters unlocked in this mode, and is the one who saves Mario right off the bat, so he's gotta go a tier above him. Pretty important. Ice Climbers! These guys don't show up until way too late in the game, and they don't do much of anything. They're climbing a mountain and beat Meta Knight to the top. Cool, but when the Halberd crashes the Corneria ship into the tip of the mountain, Lucario and Meta Knight board the ship and the Ice Climbers go tumbling down. They're not worthless, but their role is kinda weak compared to everybody else. Rob is seen all throughout the story. His clones are one of the most populous minions in this subspace army, they're the ones detonating all those bombs, and they turn on the ancient minister when Ganondorf tells them to. Only to find out that the hooded fellow was the Rob. Plot twist of the century, I know. So even if all these minions aren't him, being one of the driving forces of the game initially, and basically a secondary antagonist, is worth quite a bit, and I think is enough to put him up in elite. Kirby! This guy's elite. I mean, he's series director Masahiro Sakurai's baby. He's gonna give him a prominent role. After that goes down at the beginning and Mario gets sent, Kirby saves one of the princesses from a massive explosion. And later on, when two of the main heroes are turned into statues and stolen by DDD, who at this point seems like a bad guy, he's the one that frees them and restores some pretty vital characters. But his most important contribution is during the massive battle scene between the subspace gunship and the good guys on the Halberd, their own smaller ships. And they're about to get obliterated, until Kirby swoops by and slashes the ship with his Dragoon. Then later on, when Taboo turns everyone into statues, that DDD badge you found earlier brings him back to normal, and allows him to go around and save everybody else. Half of those things will put him up in elite, so I rest my case. Meta Knight! Meta Knight's nowhere near as useful as the other Kirby characters, but he's still got a pretty impactful role. First off, the Halberd is his ship, and he's the main reason they're able to reclaim control of it after the bad guys steal it. He also saves Lucas and Pokemon Trainer from certain death when they're plummeting toward the ground with no way to slow down. That's pretty helpful too. And the icing on the cake is the fact that he's also the best fighter in the game, by a considerable margin. So any level where you have a character choice is an easy Meta Knight selection, and make him another pretty straightforward elite. DDD! This might be the best portrayal of DDD in any game, period. Because like I said for Kirby, Sakurai likes him a lot, and debatably more because he's the voice of DDD. Where he's usually a prime suspect for being mind-controlled, here he sees what's happening to all these other characters and takes preventative measures to make sure the worst outcome doesn't happen. He somehow develops all these little tokens and places them on statues that he stole from some of the other villains. And at first it just seems like he's marking his possessions, but in actuality, he's saving them. Once Taboo floods the universe with whatever the turns everyone into statues, the ones with these DDD brooches are brought back to life, and are able to go out and save everyone else because of it. And look at how happy he gets when it works. I freaking love him. And after this huge setback for the heroes, it's DDD that leads the charge. He's more brave and heroic than ever, and is just a straight-up badass. Elite! Olimar! Olimar doesn't do anything himself. He travels in a group with a bunch of other characters, and contributes, but doesn't go the extra mile. Capable. This dude is an absolute beast throughout the game. He shows up out of nowhere, defeats Rayquaza and saves Diddy Kong, then together they team up with Falco and rescue Donkey Kong. After that, he gets in his ship and starts trying to take down the Halberd, while it's under enemy control, mind you. But he's quickly whipped out of his ship bike and forced to drink warm beverage. He's pretty typical after that, but I'd say overall he belongs in pretty important. Like I said for Fox, he shows up to help fend off against an evil Diddy clone, destroys the Dark Cannon that Bowser has, then travels with Diddy and Fox. Not as useful, but capable for sure. Is not here. Captain Falcon! Captain Falcon is a stud. He contributes throughout, but most notably, when all the Robs are arming the subspace bombs and the heroes can't stop them, as they run out of time, Captain devises a timely escape via his Falcon Flyer. Atop a speeding bullet aircraft, he takes on Mecha Ridley and defeats him with just enough time to escape the exploding base. He saves like half of the heroes, so without him, they'd be cooked. Elite. Pokemon Trainer! He serves as kind of an older brother to Lucas, who is a bit of a bitch at the beginning, and together, they defeat some waves of enemies, beat up Wario, and destroy some giant robot dude, but need saving from Meta Knight. A solid capable tier. Lucario! Lucario's encountered looking all cool on top of a mountain, and after the Ice Climbers and Meta Knight bump into him, they fight, someone wins, and a giant ship crashes into the mountain, and him and Meta Knight board it. They then team up with Snake, take control of the aircraft, and beat up all the Game & Watches that melt into a giant f***ing robot. After that, he's the same as everybody else, but since he shows up so late in the game, he's not going higher than capable. We first see this guy watching helplessly as the land in front of him gets decimated, and a bunch of bad guys start storming his castle. There he meets Meta Knight. They fight for a second, then team up to take out some waves of enemies, and try to disable another subspace bomb. He misses and Meta Knight gets shot, but Ike swoops in and actually lands a f***ing hit. And later on in the desert, when they see something suspicious driving by, Ike jumps down to investigate, Meta Knight doesn't hesitate following him, and Marth just sits there scratching his head in confusion for a minute, before begrudgingly going along with them. And that's basically it for both of these guys. Marth is portrayed as capable, but not as brave, so I'll put him in the mid-tier, and Ike is much more confident and heroic, so pretty important. He's not able to contribute that much, but when he is, he's one of the best characters in the story mode. Right off the bat, he defeats a giant Pig King statue to save Lucas, and it turns out it was being controlled by their arch-enemy Porky, so the two team up and defeat him. After that, Ness pulls a Donkey Kong and sacrifices himself to save Lucas, and Wario takes the statue, then Diddy snacks it, and uses that little badge thing to bring him back to life after the Taboo incident. And he's the one that realizes it was Didi that saved them, so he returns the favor and reawakens the best character in this mode. While he's not doing much throughout, anytime he's there, he's a prime contributor. Elite. Like I just said, he loses to a boss in the beginning and needs his buddy to take a bullet for him just to be alive. But like Diddy Kong, he turns things around a little bit. He learns a lot from his time with the Pokemon trainer, and the two avenge Ness's capture by defeating Wario, who doesn't have him anymore. I get this is supposed to be kind of an arc for him, but he still just doesn't do that much, and is shown to be kind of weak, so...
Mr. Game & Watch!
Game & Watch is right up there with Rob in terms of how many duplicates were made of him. A whole crew of them were steering the Hellbird, and Snake just smacks them out of the cockpit onto the main deck, where they melt to form this giant robot. It's beaten, and Peach revives him and gives him an umbrella to make him feel friendlier? I don't know. He's pretty worthless, not gonna lie. Snake is seen doing Snake things, hiding in a box aboard the Hellbird, but Lucario just finds him no problem, and before they can fight, they gotta team up. They rescue Zelda and Peach and save the ship. He's going right with Lucario. Capable. The last character to show face in the Subspace Emissary is Sonic the Hedgehog, and that could be seen as a bad thing because he's only playable in this final fight, but him showing up actually makes a difference. Taboo is about to reuse that attack that turned everyone to statues, and it would have effectively ended everything, but Sonic whips by and attacks his wings, which weaken him enough to give them a chance. That's more than most of these characters do. Just because they're there doesn't mean they're really helping, so I'm gonna put him in pretty important. And there you have it. Real quick, if you take your Nintendo Switch on the go a lot and wish it was easier to lug around, you gotta ditch that clunky old dock. It's bulky, flimsy, and really doesn't have a good reason to be. And Accelerate Gaming's portable dock is the solution you've been waiting for. It cuts the unnecessary plastic of Nintendo's and gives you a sleek, durable, and very portable alternative. And it's only $20, so if you want to enhance your Switch setup and support this channel, go grab one now and use code JeremyK to get an additional 10% off your order. There's a very limited amount of uses on that, so redeem it while you can. And if you disagree with me on any of the rankings in this video, leave your takes down in the comments.